Welcome to episode, believe it or not, 52 of Thursday Tea Time History Chat Live. We've got to 52 episodes. So welcome. That does, of course, mean that next week is the first birthday of the Thursday Tea Time History Live Chat. So I don't know if I'll be doing anything special. I might forget about it right up until we do next week. But anyway, next week will be the first birthday of this chat. So I know lots of you have been with me for a while. Well, I just want to say a big thank you for your support. It's fantastic to see you here each week. I can see lots of people coming in. Hi, welcome. I hope you're all having a great day and you've had a lovely week. I know I've seen some of you in between times, but I do hope, if not, that you've had a great week. So yeah, and also hi to everyone who's also new here. Who have we got here today on YouTube? Because I'm live streaming on YouTube and on Instagram. Thank you also, of course, if you're on the catch up, if you're catching this on the podcast perhaps, or indeed on the playback on YouTube or Instagram. On YouTube, John, hi, welcome. Morning, Marion. Hi, Lisa. And hi, Beverly. And I can see loads of people on Instagram as well. Hi, Joanne, how are you doing? Orlando, Victoria, and there's a few people I saw. You came in early on, Lisa and Foxed Folios. Oh, hello. And hi, Victoria. And Indita, hi over there in India. I am great. Thank you for asking, and I hope you are well too. So episode 52, if you weren't here right at the very beginning, can you believe it? That's where we're at. So next week is the first birthday of History Tea Time. No, Thursday Tea Time History Chat Live. Hi, Tara, welcome. So yes, so thank you all for joining me. Thank you for watching. Welcome if you're new. I hope you enjoy your history. If you do, then this is a good place. This is a good place for you, I think. Hi, Michael, welcome. Hi, Sam. Hi, Jean. Because we have a bit of a meander, a little bit of an amble through history on this Thursday. It's my tea time. It's 1 o'clock here in England. I know for some of you it's very early morning or even late in the evening. Hi, Orlando over there in Rio. Rio. You know I can't do it without singing, but I do want to make a special acknowledgement to everyone who supports me through Patreon, YouTube memberships. Thank you, Andita, and also buying me a coffee, because that is literally what you can do if you go to buymeacoffee.com/Philippa. It's quite cool, isn't it? What an idea. 9 p.m. Where are you, Fox Folios? If you're 9 p.m, so whereabouts are you in the world? I know which region you must be getting into, but I won't do a guess because there's lots of countries around. Yeah, so thank you to everyone who supports Patreon and gives me donations through Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee actually is interesting because Hong Kong, ooh, exciting place. I post on there as well, so it's not just a donation site. You actually can post content and things on there, so I'm sort of building that up as well. But anyway, very warm welcome to everyone and a special thank you. Michael, did I drink the coffee that you bought me? I did, but you know what, it was a I'm going to start taking photos and thank the people who bought me a coffee. That would be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? Oh, Jean in South Africa, hi. Oh, we are all over the world today. This is brilliant. Yes, Michael, it was a drive-through coconut latte from a particular coffee company that does drive-throughs here in England. So so there you go. Next time, I promise I will take a photo and I will shove it up on social media so I can say a proper thank you. So yes, we've got lots coming up. Orlando likes my singing. That's very kind. Joanne, yes, the coconut latte is delicious. It's when you're trying to avoid milk, not necessarily calories, but very, very nice. Beverly's over in Vancouver. Oh, brilliant. We've got lots of you here today. This is wonderful. So let me tell you what we're actually going to be talking about today then. I've made notes. I need to refer to my notes. I've got my special electronic notepad, which is great. I miss the feel of paper, you know. But anyway, it's it's cute. So we are going to today go through. So I haven't been anywhere particular this week, so I can't tell you about anywhere particular that I've been. I went to a spa day, but that's not historically interesting. Finally went and did my Christmas, went and spent a day with my sister and had a joint Christmas present, so that was cool. Books I'm reading, I'll talk to you about. Also historical anniversaries that we've got this week. And of course we have the just for fun question, the answer to last week's, and I'll set you a new one for this week as well. So we've got all that to come. Now we've had the live events as well so far. Well, we did Visit Tudor Britain last Friday. I was about to say we didn't. It's not. It's tomorrow that it's not happening. We did Visit Tudor Britain, and Sarah Morris, who's the Tudor travel guide, and took us through the houses of Cromwell, Thomas Cromwell, and well, she took us through three or four particular ones, but then spoke sort of more generally as well, just how, as you see Thomas Cromwell, who was one of the chief ministers to Henry VIII, as you see his, Victoria, good luck with your essay. I'll see you later. Catch up with you later. As his career develops, you know, his houses obviously takes on more. But the Austin Friars one is a really interesting house, because that's where Austin Friars Priory was in the City of London, and that one just expands and expands greatly. And she's got some fantastic blogs. So if you want to read about Cromwell's houses, then head over to the TudorTravelGuide.com to read Sarah's blogs, because they're really good. But we did that in the Visit Tudor Britain room. We hosted it on Tudor, I want to say .times. I'm just trying to think whether Debs is Tudor_times or Tudor.times. I think it's Tudor_times. Whichever one I said last week, it was the opposite. So you can go back and have a look at that. So it was a really good discussion. What we've decided to do with Visit Tudor Britain is probably one of us will lead each week, because we're all working on different projects at different times. So we'll tie it in with something we're doing, including if we're visiting somewhere. So you're going to start to see us going live from locations when we're out and about as well. So if that ties in with the time that we're going live, so that will be really fun as well. It's fantastic. We've had great news here this week with the lifting of restrictions, and especially for me, from a selfish point of view, from travellers coming in here. So things are a lot more relaxed now. So it's going to be onward and upward. Donna, hi, good morning from Delaware. Have you ever done a series on the Black Death? Very interesting topic. I haven't actually. I've got a few ideas as to some, I don't know if there'll be series or longer length documentaries of things that have, actually, it's throughout the last 2 years, things that have pricked my interest as to things that are happening now, but let's look at where they occurred in the past. So for instance, the history of money I want to look into, because money is changing a lot, and especially in the pandemic we've seen a big change to or move away from cash. So I want to really go further back and look, well, about cash. When did cash come in, and all the systems? And I have some fantastic speakers or historians that I'm going to interview around that topic as well. The history of right. Not the history of socializing, I was about to say, the history of beer and pubs, but in the context as well of socializing. Of course, we had to stop. We couldn't go out. Couldn't go out for a beer at home. See, I'm a beer fan. This is what I drink if I go out. So I like my ales. So I like my beer. Not so much a lager girl. But having a beer in a pub, in an English pub, is a different experience to having it from a can at home. So, but we, of course, we couldn't have those experiences. You didn't get talking to people that you do in the pub. You didn't get to socialise. So I want to go back and I want to have a look. It just pricked my interest. It just gave me these ideas as to things I'd like to look into. But Donna, you've just reminded me there, because saying about the Black Death, I mean, we at the beginning thought that perhaps we were going to get hit with something really quite. This hasn't been the Black Death, people. So we haven't had that. Thank goodness. But it's interesting, isn't it? Black Death had impacts, and we've seen this now to the economy, to the social setup, etc., etc. Beverly, in Shugborough in Staffordshire, they have original pieces of 8. Pieces of 8. Yes, I'm ready for my beers in pubs. I'm going to make up for lost time. John, yesterday's live last night was wild. I'm sure you didn't enjoy the technical mess. Yes, but the conversation was hysterical. So another live event that I do each week. This is with so History After Dark is on a Wednesday evening. It's a Wednesday evening here at 8:15, and I do that with Catherine Brooks, who's not just the Tudor Tracker, and Katrina Marchant, who has Reading the Past as that's her channel on YouTube. And we have our own home now on Instagram. It's history.after.dark. So if you're not following and you like your history uncensored, then please come along, join us on a Wednesday evening. It's fun. It's certainly fun. And last night was fun. But goodness me, didn't we have some technical issues? So yeah, Instagram. So I nearly gave up, John. I nearly gave up and went home. I know I'm already home, but like because it wouldn't let me on, and when it did let me on, I couldn't hear a thing, and then for part of the time I couldn't see. I thought I was well, I couldn't see myself. Not that I need to see myself, but I didn't know if anyone else could see me. And then for some reason, it doesn't do this on my account, I don't think. It wouldn't let us go over an hour, so it cut us off. That's fine. We were expecting that, but we had a guest, the fantastic Julian Humphreys, and he was talking to us about besieging castles. So, John, in fact, I missed the first 10 minutes because I couldn't hear anything, and I was trying to get back on. But when we came back on for our second stint, it wouldn't let Julian back on at all. The conversation descended from there on in. I'm not completely sure how we got to where we got to. You've got to, if you haven't checked it out and you like a laugh, have a look at history.after.dark. Have a look on our video page. Put in your earphones and yeah, just sit back and enjoy whatever that was that we came up with. But if you want the intellectual part, then listen to the first part of last evening's discussion, which which was Julian talking about besieging castles, some of the techniques that were used to defend castles, to attack castles, the negotiations that would try and avoid any of that. But he spoke about John loved Julian is great, isn't he? He is a great sport. We also, when we're doing our lives, whether it's on Clubhouse or Instagram, for History After Dark at least, we are on Zoom as well, and that is because we're also recording for the podcast, which I am going to launch, I promise. So we're in order to do that, we go on Zoom and we record the audio that way. So when Julian couldn't get back onto the Instagram live, he was still on the Zoom, so he could still hear everything we were talking about in this second derailed conversation. So Julian was a great sport on screen. He was a really good sport when he had to listen to us talk about all that we talked about. We got really taken up by sort of where things are going, you know, in terms of AI and all sorts of things. It was very funny. Thank you, John, for joining us. That was funny. And I can see lots of familiar faces on Instagram as well. I know you were with us last night. So I hope none of you were scarred for life. There's always a warning going on. I think for the podcast, I am going to put an explicit tag on it just in case. I don't know if we swear too much, but still. Anyway, got my tea, got my chat face on. But yes, join us, history.after.dark on Instagram. It's fun. And it will be History After Dark on the podcast as well. But of course, I'll share all the information about that when it comes. I know the podcast is a running gag. I promise it is coming. It's that I'm doing all the editing as well as everything else I do. And strangely enough, I have to sleep at some point. Tara, was that your first time? Tara, it was brilliant. It wasn't what I expected, but it was brilliant. No, that wasn't the first time you've been with us on History After Dark, though, was it? Was it just the way the conversation went that was it was a little bit shocking? I think we shocked ourselves last night as well. Anyway, please do check it out, especially the Julian bit. And if you want to see where we sometimes go, then yeah, check out the second half as well. Not your first. I didn't think it was. Thank you. I don't know how to pronounce your handle, Jalil02. I love your content. Thank you. Janice, your face is for a picture at times. Yes. What can I say? I think we shock ourselves at some of the stuff we say, and then when one of the others say it, it's just brilliant. And next week, I do have to confirm it with him. It is in his diary. You better turn up because he doesn't live far away from me, and so I can physically get to him. We are going to be joined by Phil Downing, and Phil, Sam had me increases. I'm glad we can bring some humour, delight, I don't know, just hilarity to the world. Joanne, the best part, not knowing where the discussion will go. Well, yes. Don't you find as well, this is something that I'm noticing about lots of podcasts and vlogs now, that we're getting these sort of longer form, less structured discussions, and it's leading to all sorts of interesting conversations, or in our case, odd and depraved at times. I don't even know. Anyway, oh, lovely. An Arabic name. Just say Jalil. I can't even, do you know, I genuinely can't even say my own surname. My tongue seems too big for my mouth. Jalil. Thank you for joining. Anyway, where was I going with that? I haven't said anything about history yet. Next week, Phil Downing is joining us in History After Dark. He is the house manager at Harvington Hall, which is just outside of Kidderminster in Worcestershire, and it's an Elizabethan manor house. It's famous for the number of priest hides that it still has. It was a Catholic recusant's house, and I don't know if all, but many of the priest hides were built by the famous Nicholas Hawksmoor. Anyway, there's quite a few surviving, which is interesting because only half the house survived. So you wonder how many more there might have actually been. John, History After Dark is like the best brainy cocktail party that sometimes goes awry hysterically. It actually did start with anyone seen Drunken History? And it started with that kind of idea-ish. Also, we wanted somewhere that we could just not be quite so, see, I'm doing it now, quite so, I don't know what the word is, careful, but that's not the word I was looking for, in how we talk about things. We just want to just chat. That's what we want. And if a swear word comes out, or it goes down a bit of a weird angle, or the other thing, of course, is we can cover certain topics that might be a bit I don't know, not for the dinner table. So maybe the details, prim and proper, Jenny, yeah, because that's what I am, obviously, usually. It's the girls that corrupt me. But we can talk about things like we've talked about torture techniques and all sorts of things that just maybe a little bit too much for you know, a nice conversation. But it's fascinating. It's interesting. It's real. It's, you know, it's still the truth. It's still stuff that happened. And I think it's important not to shy away from the true realities of humans. We can pretend it's consigned to the history books, but we'd be very naive if we think anything that human beings are capable of is not capable of rearing its ugly head again. Anyway, where was I going with that? Phil, right, Phil. Phil spent time, and Lisa's mentioning this here, I watched Phil in The Hole. Interesting experiment for him to do. So yes, Phil spent, Lisa, remind me, was it 48 hours he spent in a priest hide this time? 36? Sure, it was more. He's done 24 hours before, so I know it was longer than that. And he so there's absolutely no light in there. Although he did do some broadcasts from inside the priest hide. 36, Lisa, thank you. 36 hours in a priest hide. So other than when he did his lives, he was completely cut off from everyone. He had, I think, an apple and a small amount of water. So he couldn't come out to go to the toilet. He said it was extremely uncomfortable, and yeah, Lisa's just reminded me at one point, and without him knowing this was going to happen, the house staff recreated a priest hunt inside the house. So what would have happened if Queen Elizabeth's you know, priest hunters had turned up at the house, what their search might have been like for someone hiding. And it was incredible. So we want to get him on. He's a good friend of ours anyway, and get him on to talk about his experience in the priest hide, how that went, the scary bits. We're going to talk about the toilet bit, I'm sure, but how uncomfortable he was. He was talking about as well it was impossible for him not to make noise. And these priest hunters would come into a house. They might do the rowdy searches at the beginning, and then they might just sit. And a priest would have no idea whether they had gone or whether they were sitting and listening. And he said he couldn't even turn over. You know, he's trying to get comfortable. Couldn't even turn over without making a lot of noise. And of course, if he needed a wee, that was making a lot of noise. Anyway, so we're going to go through all this. So I'm going to give him a poke later on today and make sure that he is definitely still going to be with us next Wednesday. If not, we will book him for some time. But that will be a great History After Dark room. It's going to be a good topic. Now, so thank you, everyone. I can see who've joined. John says that sounds like an event not to miss. Indeed, I think it will be really fun. So before I get on to this week's history anniversaries, we've got a lot of Tudor ones again. Janice, Phil might have recovered from his ordeal by now. Yeah, I think it shook him a little, but yeah, I think it was hard, and I think it shook him. And also just, I think, joint stiffness as well probably didn't help. Lisa, he certainly looks the part with his beard. He does, doesn't he? Phil has red hair, and when he grows his beard, it's red. He's very Tudor looking. You know, it really does look the part. I'm going to quickly mention the death of Queen Victoria in a bit. I'm going to talk about the wedding of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, and also the burial of Katherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn's miscarriage. And then we will also look at some of the things that I've got coming up, and of course we will do the just for fun question. And if I forget any of that, please feel free to put it in the comments and say, weren't you going to tell us about this or that or the other? Because I do sometimes go off piste and lose track. But before we move on, again, I just want to say thank you to anyone who's a patron. There's a new quarterly calendar coming out. I've basically got too many ideas and I need to decide when I'm going to do everything. So what I do, if you're part of my Patreon or if you're not, just to this is quite interesting. So each quarter I publish what's going to be happening in Patreon for the next 3 months. So February, March and April is about to come out. And there's a monthly blog which everyone gets. There is either a virtual tour or a spotlight on a particular place. We talk about the history of it and things to see, obviously share photographs and videos of those places. We have historian interviews or virtual tours, and every quarter there's a sort of special event, which is this week. That's for the top tiers, and I'm doing a Remembering Katherine of Aragon documentary, which I've nearly finished and will be going out on the either tomorrow or Saturday, looking at the entire life of Katherine of Aragon, from her Spanish roots and where she was born, where she grew up, her education, through to her coming to England to marry Arthur Tudor, the difficulties. There was big diplomatic difficulties at that time of her marriage to Arthur, between England and Spain, in terms literally of the marriage. So the marriage portion and the dowry, there were arguments that or things that hadn't been quite sorted out. Now, of course, Arthur dies only less than 6 months into the marriage, and so it all comes into it all comes to the surface. It's a problem. So I'll go through that, and then of course, once Henry VII dies, Henry VIII comes to the throne, and one of the first things he does is decide to marry Catherine. And so we look at the reasons that he decides to do that. Their brilliant start to their marriage that was very, very quickly hit with tragedy, but also Catherine as regent when Henry goes to France, her victory, really, as the Battle of Flodden, where James IV of Scotland dies. She gets a little bit competitive. She's like, check me out, see what I can do, Henry. You over there in France, well done, but look what I did. Quite proud of herself. And then, of course, the coming on the scene of Anne Boleyn, and then talk about what happens after that, and finally her death and her burial. So if you're an if you're one of the top tiers of my Patreon, then you will be getting that this weekend. But it's I'll come back to that a little bit as well, because I'll be talking about that. I have a YouTube video as well talking about Catherine's funeral and Anne Boleyn's miscarriage. I'll talk about that more in a minute. If you're not a patron and you want to be, then, or you just want to be nosy and see what's over there, then you can just check it out at patreon.com/British History, and that you can join me over there for £5 a month minimum. And everyone who's on the lowest tier, you get the blog each month, but you also get lots of extras that I just post randomly into there, lots of behind the scenes photos and things like that, things that I don't share elsewhere. John says Patreon is so worth it. Thank you, John. Yes, he is one of my patrons. John, Katherine of Aragon is my favourite of Henry VIII's wives. Yeah. Isn't it interesting though, because he has 6, we all have a favourite. Yeah, this sort of forces you down this idea of which one did he love more? Who did he love? Who do we like the most? It sort of goes up. In fact, before we move on to this week's historical anniversaries, hello, Rakaviki 009, welcome. Before I move on to this week's historical anniversaries, one of the things I was going to mention it later, but I'm going to mention it now because it's to do with Henry VIII's wives. I'm going to be interviewing very soon Gareth Russell. Gareth is a fantastic historian, a brilliant writer. He's written fiction, but his non-fiction books are incredible. The way they're written, he's just one of these people you can read easily, even though it's absolutely packed with information. His research is second to none. So if there's something in there, you know that he's done the research behind it. He has written what many people, me included, consider the biography for Catherine Howard. Excuse me, it's called Young and Damned and Fair. He's also written a book about the sinking of the Titanic, and how it really represents the changes in the Edwardian in the Edwardian era. Really quite fascinating books. I'm going to be interviewing him for I'll tell you in a moment. Sorry, Jalil, which British era are you into most? And I find myself being drawn to the Tudors, but that's because, you know, people want to talk about the Tudors, so it tends to be an era that I talk about a lot. We also have, although people wish we had more, we do have a lot of places you can go and visit that are associated with the Tudors. I actually love the Roman period because it's 2,000 years ago, and yet it had such an impact on our language, on our just you know, our legal system, all these sorts of things. I know obviously you then get, because you get the influence of Rome back, so it's not just the occupation of Britain by the Romans. But again, you can go and see quite a bit that remains, not complete, of course, but from that period. Also, do you know, actually I could just go on because I'm listening to Mark Morris's book about the Anglo-Saxons at the moment, so pre-Norman conquest. Absolutely fascinating. If you can get round the pronunciations of the Old English names, because I don't know about you, but I can find that I can't remember them very well because I'm not sure. I need to be able to either read something or picture how it's spelt to kind of remember it. And once you can get over that, then well, maybe you don't need to, maybe it's just me, but it's a really fascinating time, because remember, by the time William conquers, invades England, all the tribes were as one, and England had become united. So that's fascinating as well. I could just go on. I don't know if there's an era that I don't find fascinating. I think the Georgians I find probably the least. There's good stories from the Georgian period. The Stuarts is far more interesting than I think people give credit. Lots of the laws and ways of our political system is set up come from sort of the end of the Stuarts, sort of the Mary, William and Anne period. So really important stuff that we're still living in a more direct way with came about at the end of that period. So that's a really long and rambling answer to your question. Lisa, what do Romans ever do for us? Indeed. John, Ethel who is whom? They're all like Ethel Fred, see, I can't even do it. Oh, Jalil, fond of the Stone Age era. So there's a particular part of England that I like to spend a lot of time, especially in the summer, and there are a lot of Stone Age remains, and you can see them from you know, it's just sort of earthworks left, bits of stone circles, quite a few stone circles still can be found, especially where I go on Exmoor, and that's, you know, it's a fantastic link, isn't it, back to the past, especially a stone circle. I think usually you have to share it with some sheep that are grazing nearby, but yeah, you can let your imagination run wild as to why it's there, what it was used for. Tara loves the Stuarts. Yeah, good indeed. Fantastic. I think you'll see more. This is my prediction, I could be wrong, but I think we're going to start to see more about the Stuarts, like we have done about the Tudors, because people are really quite clued up about the Tudors now, whereas we had lots of myths and misrepresentations of the Tudors before. Now people are quite, and it might just, maybe it's just me and the people I speak to, like yourselves, we're quite up on Tudor history now. And we're getting into really quite nuanced debates about Tudor history. But of course, what then happened next? And you get more fascinated. I find anyway, you find a period you like, and then but what happened next? Or how did we get there? And so your interest will expand. And if you find a writer or a presenter who makes it feel easy to think about, to learn about, then even the better. Jenna, I have to agree, the Georgians aren't my favourite either. They destroyed so much. I mean, they did. I do like some of their architecture, I have to say. But it was a period that the upper echelons of society have always had a nice time compared to everyone else, but the Georgians just seem to take it to another level. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that now. Anyway, Michael, the Plantagenets, yes, fascinating. Marion, I love good King George III. And I'm from the US, yeah. Indeed. Jalil, the British history is in ways is similar to the Moroccan one. Really? So again, it's not just periods of history, is it? When you start, I love listening to Neil Oliver. If anyone hasn't come across Neil Oliver yet, he's got some fantastic books. There's one called The Wisdom of the Ancients, and so because I think he's archaeology based, as opposed to a period. His work has taken him all over the world, either physically or out of interest, and he brings together stories. So what's happening in another part of the globe, because we can find ourselves looking at history in isolation in terms of the period and the geographical location. Of course, nothing ever happens in isolation. Shane and Tiff, oh, I love the Plantagenets. Yeah. Mad Journalist, hi, welcome. Over there in Greece, there is stuff from the Victorian era that's rather fascinating. Well, let me, I'll come on to Victoria in a minute, actually. Tara, do you think that once we begin to make connection through family trees before and after we dig deeper? Yeah, family trees, that's another way people are coming to different periods of history, isn't it? If you can actually locate a family member, then it gives you that link, doesn't it? It becomes more relevant, personally relevant to you. So that's a great way of coming to different periods of history. Michael says he loves Neil Oliver, real patriot. Yeah, do check out Neil Oliver. I think a good place to start would be his Wisdom of the Ancients book, because the stories he talks about are worldwide. Donna, I tend to enjoy learning about the Tudor period and the Victorian age. So the 22nd of January, I know we're a week past that now, but that was the anniversary of Victoria's death, and she reigned for 63 years, as you may or may not know. So our current queen has, obviously recently surpassed that. When I did a video about or to coincide with the anniversary of Victoria's death, I actually chose to talk about the societal changes that had happened during Queen Victoria's reign, so the Victorian era, the Victorian times, because I'm going to do something similar for our current Queen. We're obviously in the Jubilee year, so I'm thinking about ideas of how I'd like to contribute. So the video I've done about Queen Victoria, like I say, to coincide with Queen Victoria's death on the 22nd of January, 1901, is more to do with some of the main societal changes, technology advances. I mean, the world of work changed. I mean, this is, it's going to start to ring bells. Oh, we're going through something now. Technological change, the world of work changing, how people spent their leisure time changing, how people spent their money changed. So those kinds of things I've covered in that video. So you can check that out on my YouTube channel, and I will after this I'll put a link on Instagram to get to that video as well. But I think that's really fascinating. I could have talked about the fact that when Victoria died, no one really knew what to do because there was no one alive who'd dealt with the last death. I think they'll be a bit more organised. What's happened again? Yeah. So that's one anniversary from this week. Another one. Now I posted about this on Instagram on the anniversary, so it's on the 25th, so 2 days ago, and this was the wedding of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn over the Holbein Gate at Whitehall Palace. Now, of course, as many of you will know, the majority of Whitehall Palace no longer exists, and certainly not the above ground of the Tudor one. You have Banqueting House, but that's from the early Stuarts. Marion enjoys the Edwardians, love the style of clothing. Yeah. Yes, me too. I like Art Deco as well. SS King Cooler says 2 Men in a Trench is also good for introducing you to Neil Oliver. Lots on YouTube. Yeah, that's a good shout, because that's quite I don't know when that was. It's quite old now, isn't it? But really, really good. He still works with the other guy, I think. Yes, so should be easily available. Anyway, there you go. Big plug for Neil Oliver. Definitely go and introduce yourself to his work. So Henry VIII marries Anne Boleyn, 25th of January, 1533. And it was a secret ceremony held before dawn in an upper chamber of the Holbein Gate, Whitehall. I've put a picture, like I say, on YouTube, so you can see what the art deco. Sorry, I've just read a bad journalist's comment that says Art Deco and said it out loud. I also love Art Deco. Yes. So yeah, the Holbein Gate doesn't exist anymore. So I've put a picture of that in the background on the Instagram image. So check that out as well. So why was it secret? Anyone know? Why would it be secret? Now, this wasn't unusual for Henry. Again, I talk about this in the documentary I'm doing for patrons, for top tier patrons, about remembering Katherine of Aragon, because his marriage to Catherine was also a private affair. So it's not unusual for Henry. In fact, I think all his weddings were private. And indeed, this one to Anne Boleyn at Whitehall was. Now, it was presided over by, I've written a few notes so I don't forget names, Roland Lee. And the only witnesses were Henry Norris, who you'll know the name of if you know about the downfall of Anne Boleyn, one of Henry's closest body servants. Thomas Heneage was another man there, and then 2 more gentlemen of Henry's privy chamber, and a lady called Anne Savage, who attended on Anne. But was that even maybe the only wedding ceremony? Because there is an account by the chronicler Edward Hall, or the chronicler Edward Hall notes that there had been a wedding ceremony when they'd landed in Dover the previous, that'd been November, on their way back from France. When they'd been in France, Anne had been treated as Henry's queen. when they got back to Dover, there's this report that they have a wedding ceremony, which would kind of make sense. And I'll tell you why. Because at the time that Anne marries Henry at Whitehall in January 1533, she's already pregnant, only just, but already pregnant with the future Elizabeth I. Jenna says it makes sense considering Elizabeth was born in September. Exactly. Whether or not she knew she was pregnant, it's still very, very early on in the pregnancy. I don't know. But it means they must have slept together. So, and Anne had held out for so long because she wanted to be his true wife, that I don't think she'd have waited that long. And then without a wedding ceremony or some sort of commitment, slept with Henry. So I think it makes quite a bit of sense. I have a video on that. Surprise, surprise. I have a video on both those things. The video about the wedding at Dover is specifically about that. The one about the wedding at Whitehall is actually me having a little walk around Whitehall to show you the kind of the extent of Whitehall Palace and the location of where the Holbein Gate would have been. So you can look at that. Let me just have a look. I can see a few comments have come in. Jalil, do you have any info about the Rock of Jacob that was used in the British throne? Is that the Stone of Scone? Same. Is that what you're referring to there? So this stone from Scone Abbey that the Scottish kings had been crowned on, and that was stolen. I was going to say confiscated, but it was stolen by Edward I and brought down, and he had the coronation chair created and a place underneath for the stone to go. I have a video on that as well, if you want to check that out. Oh, I've got a bit of a poor connection on Instagram there. Sorry, everybody. So yes, I have a video on that if you want to have a look at that. Fletcher Shane, hi. Who do you think killed the princes in the tower? Henry VIII, Henry VII or Richard? Oh my goodness, we have lots of discussions about that. I think it would be, well, especially in light of the recent, I'm going to say findings, but I think it's a little bit, I don't know that that's quite what it is, of this tomb that could be the tomb of the younger of the brothers. I don't know. Probably Richard. I think they'd probably died by the time Henry came to the throne. Imagine is how come it didn't survive the Holbein Gate? It strikes me as quite important in the larger schemes of things, having important events take place there. Well, because although we are now, hopefully, and I wouldn't guarantee this either, more wary of preserving our history, there's been lots of times where that just hasn't been the case. And Whitehall was widened. I mean, the palace itself, there was a massive fire, and it wasn't really. I don't think it was really repaired after that. And yeah, when Whitehall itself, so Whitehall is the big road that goes up from Parliament Square up to Trafalgar Square. It's where all our government is sited. And yeah, it's a really wide road, and it just got cleared for traffic. Rubbish. It beggars belief. So hi Debbie over there in Italy. Ciao. I am jealous. I love Italy. Oh, I keep getting poor connection. I keep getting poor connection on Instagram. Apologies with everybody. Right, shall we, before we move on to Katherine of Aragon? Oh, I didn't finish talking to you about Gareth. I must finish talking to you about Gareth. Sorry. So Gareth Russell, I was talking to you about him. He's the author of, like I say, the, in my humble opinion, biography of Catherine Howard. It's called Young and Damned and Fair. He's got other fantastic books out. I'm going to be interviewing him about the similarities and differences between the downfalls of Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, because we've been having discussions on Clubhouses and Instagrams where we've talked about the downfall of Anne, we've talked about the downfall of Catherine, and actually to compare and contrast the processes, the events and the outcomes of those two women's fates helps understand, I think, the other as well. So I'm going to be specifically asking Gareth about those similarities and differences and sort of comparing and contrasting. However, if you're a patron of any tier, you can put forward your questions to Gareth as well. So after this, if you're a patron, please head over to the Patreon page and you will be able to put your questions to Gareth. And what will happen is when the interview is published on my YouTube channel, patrons, you will get an extra bit, and it will be the bit that Gareth answers your questions. So not only do you get to ask your own questions of Gareth, and it can be about that history or any of the other history that he's written about, or a general history question indeed, then you get to see that bit of the interview and all his answers. If you want to join the Patreon, it's a bit of I think it's a great perk of being a patron, is to get to ask your own questions of these historians. Indeed, people did of Tracy Borman when I interviewed her recently as well. Debbie, yes, of course. So I will say it and then I will share it later. Debbie's asking for the link. It's patreon.com/British History. And you can join for £5 a month. And yeah, members of any tier level will get to ask Gareth those whatever questions you like, history based, of course, and I will be putting those to him. So if you could submit your homework, please, by the end of Monday, that would be fabulous, and I will put those to him. So I'll give him a week to mull them over before I'm interviewing him. I've missed a few comments, so let me just get to those. Michael, there is a tunnel that runs from Hampton Court to the end of Bridge Road in East Moseley, and let's believe one that runs from Hampton Court to Kingston. Are they the ones that were alluded to in Peaky Blinders? They were talking about, well, they built tunnels, didn't they, in Peaky Blinders to try and get into the into where the jewels were kept. Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Donna says, has anyone read The Anchoress by Robin Cadwallada? Really enjoyed it. What are anyone's thoughts on the book? Anyone read The Anchoress by Robin Cadwallada? Donna, that's really interesting you've brought that up, because anchoresses are something that I want to... I haven't got enough time to live, to be fair, to get into everything I want to learn about. Because sorry, I've just read another comment. Anchoresses, there's a brilliant non-fiction book by Dr. Yanina Ramirez about Julian of Norwich, who was an anchoress. So she talks more generally about anchoresses, and it's fascinating. So anchoresses and anchorites indeed, but anchoresses I think were more community based, i.e. they would be linked to a local abbey or church, and they would attend their own funeral, and then they would be blocked in to a cell. Now, since knowing this, I now look for the evidence of these cells at every church and cathedral or abbey that I go to, and indeed at Peterborough Abbey, where Katherine of Aragon is buried. I believe there's the site of an old anchoress's cell. So that's really interesting that there's a book. So is that is that a fiction book, Donna, The Anchorage? John says he's ordered Gareth's Young and Damned and Fair. Thanks for your recommendation. You're very welcome. And also got his Titanic book. Anyone interested in High Vision for the Disabled Uganda? Welcome. Lovely to see you here. Does anyone, if anyone's interested in the Titanic, then Gareth's book about the Titanic is fantastic. You can visit my page on Amazon where I've put links to all of these books. I do get a small commission, but they're no more expensive to you, so it's a great way of supporting me. My shop is amazon.co.uk/shop/British history. Colleen's got both of Gareth's books and they are awesome. They are indeed. Gareth as well. For any of you coming on tour with me in May or July, Gareth is my co-host. So if you're coming on tour with me and you have any of his books and you want to get him to sign them, bring them along. That would be good, wouldn't it? So yeah, so you can have a look for the links for all these the books that I recommend on amazon.co.uk/shop/British history. I've been talking about Katherine of Aragon quite a lot, and Anne Boleyn. I get a lot. I'll recommend this. I think I've already told you about it, but anyway, I'll tell you again because it is almost a Bible about the 6 wives of Henry, and Henry, of course, during his conduct during his marriages, and it's David Starkey's book. It's rather large. It's really good on Audible. It's because it is read by Patricia Hodge, who has the most amazing voice. Colleen, yeah, Damned and Young and Fair is the Bible on Catherine Howard. I totally agree. Absolutely. So it's also, right, and you'll all know this because I've said it a million times. I keep doing this. I listen to a book on Audible and then I buy it. And then, I don't know, because I suppose then you can refer to it forevermore as well. Now, before I get on to talking about our last story of the day, which is Katherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, and what awful things, well, it's Catherine's funeral and then Anne miscarried on exactly the same day. But before I do that, why don't we do last week's Just for Fun question? I'll hide that a second. So last week's Just for Fun question. So each week, for anyone who doesn't already know, I'll set you a Just for Fun question. And it's based on one of my videos. So you can, and I'll tell you which one. So there's clues. So you can go and watch the video and find the answer. Emery 676, I bought The King's Painter about Hans Holbein. Oh, yes. Oh, see, there's another book I want to read. Oh, I could do with a chip, just sort of. Oh, don't give Elon any ideas. I was about to say, give me a chip where you can put all the information into my head, but we got onto that. I think we might have talked about that on History After Dark last night. Yeah, sorry. So the question, it was based on my video Simon de Montfort and the First English Parliament, and it was, and I love it. I'll tell you what Lisa's just said in a moment. It was, what did Queen Eleanor send to Maud de Montfort to thank her for her support? And Lisa is correct, it wasn't a fruit basket. Michael says it was the crown jewels. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So, Queen Eleanor, to thank Maud de Montfort for her loyalty and bravery during Simon de Montfort's, well, watch the video and I explain to you what he got up to. She sent Maud Simon's head and testicles. I know. As a thank you gift. As I say in the video, I could think of better gifts. But, yeah. John, Elon Musk will take care of you. Yeah. Okie doke. And my journalist, it was indeed a lively discussion, to put it mildly, last night. Yes. I know, Bobby Ann. Yeah, Colleen's got a shocked face. I know. Yeah, I mean, it sends a message, doesn't it? It definitely sends a message. So, yeah, that was last week's question and answer. So why don't I set you one for this week? So this week's is based on the interview that, if you haven't watched it already, it's actually the audio. We didn't do it to camera, but I interviewed, actually I just let her talk, Leslie Smith from Tutbury. Leslie she portrays women from history. She's got 12 characters that she portrays, and they're incredible. And what I wanted to ask her about was, one, I didn't know how many she did until I asked, but how she prepares, how she performs, really. What does it feel like when she's performing? She does monologues, which can be about 30 to 40 minutes long. So does she learn a script? How does she do it? And she talks to us about how she does all of that, and it's amazing. It's amazing if you listen to how she researches, how she chooses who she's going to portray, how she learns about them, the sources she goes to. She talks about her costumes. They are done to the most incredible detail. So my question, based on John says Leslie Smith's interview was absolutely amazing. Thank you, John. Yes, it's good. Pop it on in the car, pop it on in your headphones when you're doing the cleaning. Just listen to Leslie's lovely voice and talking about how she does portray some of the most incredible women from history, including Katherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Boudica she covers. She does Catherine Swynford, and others that I can't think. Oh, Nell Gwynn. She does Margaret Thatcher. She does lots. They're brilliant. Now, my question to you then, ready for next week, is sorry, I just got distracted slightly, is how heavy is the gown that Leslie wears when she appears as Katherine of Aragon? So the answer is in that interview. It's called Portraying Women in History. I'll pop a link to it in my story on Instagram after this. On YouTube, you can probably just go and look at the list. It's not that far down. It was the interview before Tracy Borman's interview. So how heavy is the gown Leslie Smith wears when she appears as Katherine of Aragon? It's quite incredible. So Jenna says, oh, lovely. And they thought Katherine of Aragon was bad for wanting to send James IV's head to Henry. I know. Oh dear. Hilarious, right? Perseverance 1501. I always enjoy these chats. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you for persevering. What a perfect handle type name. Let's have a look at what people are saying on Michael does a good Boris Johnson. I think everyone. Let's not get into that. Not get into that. Soon we'll be able to probably talk about that as history. So our last story for today, let me just take a sip of my tea, is linked to the 29th of January 1536. This is the date on which Catherine of Aragon was buried at Peterborough. It was Abbey at the time, it's cathedral now. And as I say, top tier patrons can get a documentary on Saturday remembering Catherine of Aragon, which I've recorded. Because her life is incredible. I did mention this earlier, I know, but the ups and downs, just quite amazing. And one of the highs indeed was in 1511 when she was regent. Henry was over in France, and James IV of Scotland decided to invade England while Henry was away. Didn't work out well for him. Spoiler alert. And yeah, Catherine wasn't just a figurehead or just someone in whose name they were acting. She was actively involved in the strategy, There's evidence that she had armour created for her, and so that she probably did ride with the army, very much like her mother would have done. I mean, I don't think this would have been something odd to Catherine. Catherine had been on crusade with her mother, Isabella of Castile. So yeah, so where did I go with that? So yeah, so anyway, this documentary will be coming out to top tier patrons. But on the same, oh no, let me talk about her. Sorry, let me talk about her funeral. Just another point about it, just quickly. She was buried as the Dowager Princess of Wales, of course, because Henry to the last maintained, of course, that their marriage had never been a lawful union. Catherine, in her last letter to Henry, which was written the previous December, still referred to herself in her letter to Henry, so defiant, she referred to herself as Queen of England. So yeah, incredible woman. Tara says Catherine was amazing. Poor Mary, though. Yeah. I mean, there's another discussion as well for another day. I think we've done it on Clubhouse, but it's always worth coming back to the impact of Catherine's banishment from court, from the demotion of Mary herself and her mother, yeah, what impact did that have on Mary? Yeah, she was about 17, I think, when her mother was when the divorce finally came through. Well, it wasn't a divorce properly coming through at all. It was Archbishop Cranmer saying that it had, or giving it, just stick yourself in charge and make your own rules up. Oh, heard that somewhere recently as well. So anyway, so that was, yeah, so Catherine's buried as so with a state funeral, but as Dowager Princess of Wales. You can still visit her tomb. The headstone, it's not a headstone, the stone on her tomb was in fact paid for. Now this is totally off the top of my head, so I'm not going to remember any dates. One of the newspapers that still goes, I think it might have been the Daily Mail, ran a campaign to pay for a stone on Catherine's tomb, and they took donations from, this is how the story goes anyway, from Catherines, so women called Catherine from over the country. So the story goes that stone has been paid for by the Catherines of the UK. I think it was about, I can't tell you the date, a while ago, 60s, maybe earlier. But yeah, so you can still visit Katherine of Aragon's tomb. And I don't know, I'm hoping this year, I'm presuming they have gone ahead, but each year around this time, so the weekend, in fact it falls on a Saturday, but the weekend closest to the 29th of January, and obviously that does fall on a Saturday this year, they do a Katherine of Aragon festival at Peterborough, at the cathedral, and that is fantastic. If you ever, you know, are thinking of going to that area and you're interested in Catherine, then I'd recommend you try and coordinate your visit so it's at the end of January, so that you can take advantage. So yeah, so she has her funeral now on the same day as Catherine is buried. Anne Boleyn miscarries. Remember it, we're 1536. What else happens in 1536? Of course, Anne is beheaded in May. So what's that? February, March, April. Not even 4 months later, Anne is dead as well. Now, Anne's position, while Catherine was still alive, although she celebrated when Catherine died, or supposedly celebrated when Catherine died, her position was actually safer while Catherine was alive, because for Henry to have banished his who many considered his wife from court in order to marry someone else was one thing. To get rid of that second person whilst the first person was still around would have caused all sorts of problems. Not only would he have looked like, well, the person he probably was, but if he gets rid of Anne, should he be having Catherine back? Does it mean that the marriage was actually okay all along, etc., etc., etc.? So with Catherine gone, Anne's position was actually far more tenuous than it had been when Catherine was alive. And we start to see Anne's life unravelling quite quickly after this, although most of the events do take place at the very end of April and obviously the start of into the middle of May. I chart the downfall of Anne Boleyn in a series of videos on YouTube if you're interested. I think they're called Charting the Downfall of Anne Boleyn, so they're not too difficult to find if you go onto my channel and have a look. What have we got here? We've got had a few comments. So Lisa, didn't the Pope make invading a Catholic country illegal when the monarch was elsewhere? Oh, so James invading England when Henry was away. I hadn't heard that, but that would, to be honest, that sounds like a kind of thing that they kind of rule that that popes think they could put in place, and then kings say yeah, and then when it suits them, and then ignored it when it didn't. Michael, I like Catherine the most. She was so pugnacious. Fantastic word. Tara would love a discussion about Mary. Cool. I will put it in my memory. Might be a good one for History After Dark actually as well. John, Catherine was far more royal than the upstart Henry Tudor. She was. Did you know that both Catherine and both her husbands can trace their family trees back to John of Gaunt? Donna, Anne Boleyn gets a really bad rap. I don't believe all the stories about her infidelity to the king, and poor Elizabeth left without a mother. Truly heartbreaking. Oh yeah, this is why I want to do this interview with Gareth, because there's lots about the downfall of Catherine Howard, which when you then contrast it with what happened with Anne Boleyn, gives even more, I think, evidence that where Anne Boleyn was concerned, there was a wish to get rid of her, by whom, for whatever reason, and then the charges were found, the allegations were found, whereas with Catherine Howard, it's very different. So this is what I'm going to be talking to Gareth Russell about, these similarities and differences between the downfall of Catherine Howard and the downfall of Anne Boleyn, and we're going to tease out that kind of stuff. Marion, do you think Anne knew that regarding Catherine being alive? Yeah, apparently. So again, I will recommend it again. David Starkey's book on the 6 wives. He talks about it in here. I think she comments on it. I think she works it out pretty soon after Catherine's actually dead. There's something that dawns on her that it's not, that now there's nothing in between him getting rid of her as well. It could have just been paranoia at that point, of course, or incredible intuition. John's answered Lisa's questions only during the Crusades. I see. So the Pope said if someone's out on, so if someone's out crusading for the Pope, for the Christian faith, please don't invade just because the king's not in the country, or Queen in Isabella's case. Although I wouldn't go near Isabella of Castile's land. So imagine this, we're back to Maud, I think here. I need to ask way back when they sent dead body parts as gifts, were they not well reeking? Yeah, and in an advanced state of decomposition by the time they got to their intended recipient. Yeah, because they're not exactly going to like pack them in ice, like if you ever order fish offline. Does anyone do that? They pack it in ice and polystyrene. And it comes fresh. Yeah, not only would it stink, Mad Journalist is making a really good point here, Isn't that dangerous? Bit gross, sending rotting flesh. Yeah. SF King Cooler. Balls alone aren't proof of death. The head too was conclusive. Yeah. Maybe they preserve them with salt. Oh, so they're all dehydrated by the time they got there as well. Still revolting. Absolutely. Totally agree. Joanne, I watched a YouTube with David Starkey discussion of Catherine Howard. Oh, yes, he's done. So David Starkey has his own YouTube channel now called David Starkey Talks. Joanne's just said here, one of his recent discussions, it was a lecture that he was giving in a church somewhere, I can't remember where it was, talking about Catherine Howard, and he's posted that. So many of his talks are like I'm talking to you now, but many as well are him doing talks at other places, and then he posts them, so they're really worth looking at. Lisa, possibly the head is possibly put in vinegar or alcohol. Oh yeah, to preserve it. You imagine though. Oh, what's this big box? Oh, great. I don't know, maybe she gave us something else as well. Maybe some lands and jewels as well. I didn't come across that in the story, but I think that would be a bit mean just to send Simon's top and tail, as it were. Right. So anyway, so those are the stories. So what do I need to remind you of? Tracy Borman's the competition to win her book, the signed copy of The Private Lives of the Tudors, which is up on my shelf, as it always is at this point, where I think what I could probably have done with was get it down off the shelf to show you. But it's a signed copy of The Private Lives of the Tudors, which you can still win if you watch Tracy's interview with me on my YouTube channel. The full interview, there's a shorter 10-minute interview, but if you look at the full interview, like that video, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and answer the question underneath. All the details that you need are on the video and underneath in the description as well. So that's still open. That competition doesn't close until the 28th of February. So you've still got a chance to do that if you want to. Khalid's getting into the process of tanning. We won't go into that. Joanne, it was a great interview with Tracy. Thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you. Yes, it's well worth watching, because I was asking her, obviously she's got her new book Crown and Sceptre out, but I was asking her specifically about female power, but from the point of view of, well, we did have queens regnant, and even when we didn't, women did wield power. It was in a different way to the men, but they did, and they had influence. So I wanted to talk about that. Colleen, my bad. Can you imagine living near a tannery? I wonder if they just didn't, when your nose gets nose blindness, when you just get used to a smell. Ugh. Oh, Lisa, it would have given the brandy a bit of body. Should have pickled him on the way. Michael's off. It's been a pleasure. Have a great afternoon, Michael. Yeah, I am wrapping up. Don't worry, everyone. I will let you get back to your day at some point. Oh, I'm on a roll today. But we are episode 52. I don't know if anyone's been here the whole time, but episode 52. So we've done a year. So next week is the proper first birthday of the Thursday History Tea Time live chat. So I'd love you to join me. I probably won't do anything particularly different. Might wear a hat. Might have something sparkly instead of my tea. Not sure. Tara, talking about the tanning. Yeah, I guess the world was smelly anyway. I think there were more smells. Yes, I think there were more smells. But I'd be interested actually to speak to someone, and I might know someone actually, to talk about what the actual, what it really was like in the streets at that time. Lisa, thumbs up. Oh yes, anyone watching on YouTube, please do give me a thumbs up. That would be fabulous as well. So yeah, reminders. If you haven't already entered the Tracy Borman competition, you may as well. I'm paying the postage, so I'll send it to you wherever you are. Oh, Marion's enjoying me staying on this long. You all go about your business and I'll just keep waffling in your ear. Jenna says, it had to be gross. A paper mill smells absolutely terrible. So I can only imagine, yeah, what a tannery would smell like. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know how they used to treat hides in order to make leather, it was with excrement. Oh, Rennie agrees. She's having fun too. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, secret is I need to finish this documentary for my patrons about Katherine of Aragon. It's there, but I've got to finish it. Doug, on the Viking Museum at York has, yes, it does. It has that authentic smell pumped in, which actually puts, I know some people who get put off going in. Bye, Christine. Thank you for joining me today. And that journalist is not too long for her either. Excellent. Cool. If you would like to put your question to Gareth Russell, any history question to Gareth, and you're a patron, head over to Patreon now. I've done a post on there, so you can just put your comment in the comments underneath. You can put what you'd like to ask, Gareth. If you're not a Patreon, come and join me. We do even more. So you get blogs in there, which I don't do anywhere else now. You get more, you get virtual tours, you get behind the scenes photos, you get to ask historians questions. What else do? We do quite a lot of other stuff. So you can find that on patreon.com/British history. That's me. I'm there doing my stuff. So you can do that. You can also, if you just want to keep me in caffeine, buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Philippa. I think I must have got in nice and early there, don't you, to get that? I know Philippa's not the most common name, but it's but just to get Philippa, I haven't even had to put another initial on there or some odd number. So Rennie's running. Bye. Thank you for joining us today. Mad journalist. I'm intelligent and witty, so it's excellent fun. Oh, you can come again. Most definitely. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to blush. Can you see me blushing? I think I am genuinely blushing. John's had a good time. Thank you. Thank you, Tara. I'll see you soon as well. See, I'm going to go, do you know, every week I go, oh, I didn't say that. What was it? So I'm just going to double check that I haven't missed something. I'll just remind you again as well, if you're interested in any of the books that I've mentioned, then I've got that app, the Amazon store. So all of the links are there. I do get a slight commission, but the books are no more expensive to you. So it's a great way of helping me out and supporting me as well. And that's Amazon, in the way I say it, Amazon, you know, you all know how to spell it, .co.uk/shop/British history. Bye, Joanne. Have a great day. And remember to catch up on the Leslie's interview, the interview with Leslie Smith about portraying women in history, so that you can tell me next week how heavy the gown is that she wears when she is portraying Katherine of Aragon. That would be, I think you'll be astounded. Let me put it that way. Jella says, I have a relaxing voice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe I should do some meditation tapes, although I think I'm too excitable. Jenna, we always enjoy the lives with you and the rest of the girls. Have a good rest of my day. Thank you, and you too. Thank you, Janice, for joining me for tea and chat again. That's fabulous. So yeah, so thank you everyone for joining me today. Thank you especially to anyone who supports me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Thank you so much. It really helps keep me in coffee. So but for now, everyone, I will see, when am I next live? Monday, I think, on Clubhouse will be the next time that I am live at 5 o'clock. After that, it's History After Dark again on Wednesday at 8:15 in the evening. And then I'll be back here for the birthday episode of Thursday Tea Time History Chat Live. So thank you so much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Colleen. Have a great day, everybody, wherever you are, and a lovely week if I don't see you before then. All right.